A ship adrift in the middle of the Atlantic without a single crew member on board. For 38 times, terrified sailors reported seeing the W.L. White floating like a silent apparition. But what made it so fascinating and so frightening was that no one knew why it had been abandoned. What happened to its crew? Why did it tirelessly wander until it shipwrecked in Scotland? And did it truly disappear? This is the story of the Ghost White, one of the most enigmatic mysteries of the seas. Did you know that the oceans hide stories so strange they seem straight out of a horror movie? Among them are the tales of ghost ships, abandoned vessels found drifting without a trace of their crew. These stories have fueled human imagination for centuries, blending mystery, fear, and fascination. But contrary to popular belief, ghost ships aren't always mere legends. Many are real, with documented records, leaving more questions than answers. And we're not just talking about myths like the Flying Dutchman. There are concrete cases, such as the Mary Celeste and, of course, the W.L. White, cited dozens of times as it wandered the Atlantic, earning the nickname Ghost White. The story of the W.L. White begins in 1888, the year it was abandoned. Yet even today, it continues to captivate anyone who hears about it. Built to transport valuable goods across the Atlantic, it followed a smooth course until the day it was discovered completely empty, drifting aimlessly. What makes it so special is not just the fact that it was abandoned, but how it became the most cited ghost ship of the 19th century. Sailors from various nationalities reported encountering the W.L. White 38 times, always silent, without a crew, yet incredibly well preserved. These sightings were not isolated incidents. Each report fueled a larger mystery. What happened on the day the W.L. White was left behind? And how did it manage to drift thousands of miles, defying time and the ocean until it met its final fate in Scotland? These events not only left an imprint on maritime culture but also cemented the Ghost White as one of the greatest enigmas of the seas. Now, let's dive deep to unravel this story that the ocean refused to hide. The W.L. White was born in one of the most respected shipyards of its time in 1867, the year it was built. Constructed with high-resistance wood, it was designed to withstand the unpredictable conditions of the Atlantic. At 40 meters in length, its grandeur made it a giant among freighters of its category. The ship featured mainsails for propulsion in favorable winds, but also carried an auxiliary steam engine, an innovation that blended tradition with modernity. This combination made it versatile and reliable for long voyages. It could transport up to 200 tons of cargo, ranging from coal to high-value goods like textiles and spices. What set the W.L. White apart was its reputation. It was said to be indestructible, a symbol of maritime excellence. Seasoned sailors trusted the ship as if it were a protector against the ocean's dangers. However, as the sea often reminds us, nothing is truly proof against its power. For the 2 decades following its construction, the W.L. White sailed some of the world's most important trade routes. It was frequently spotted in ports across the North Atlantic, connecting Europe to the Americas. Its cargo varied according to demand, but always included high-profit goods. One of its main routes ran from Liverpool, United Kingdom, to New York City, United States, carrying manufactured goods. On the return trip, it transported cotton, tobacco, and other products from the New World to supply Europe. But it didn't limit itself to the North Atlantic. There are records of journeys to the Caribbean, a riskier route due to weather conditions and the presence of pirates. It was precisely on one of these Caribbean routes that the W.L. White's fate began to change. The merchant's trust in the W.L. White was unshakable. It was seen as a symbol of connection between continents until the day it disappeared. The year was 1888, and the W.L. White was navigating one of its usual Caribbean routes, transporting a diversified cargo that included wood and spices. Everything seemed normal, But at some point between the port of Havana, Cuba, and its final destination in New Orleans, something inexplicable occurred. When the ship was found adrift near the Bahamas, it was completely empty. There was no sign of the crew or any clear indication of what might have caused them to abandon the vessel. The sea was calm, with no record of storms or weather events that would justify an emergency evacuation. Theories quickly began to circulate. Some believed the ship could have fallen victim to pirates, common in that region at the time. Others speculated about a possible outbreak of disease that could have caused the sailors to flee in desperation. But there was something odd. No evidence of a struggle or contamination was found aboard. And then darker rumors emerged. Stories of screams heard at sea and a supposed curse began spreading among sailors who traveled that route. It was as if the W.L. White carried a secret the ocean didn't want to reveal. When the vessel was boarded by another crew, its state was surprisingly good. The hull was intact, the sails still functional, and even the cargo remained organized. This only deepened the mystery. Why would the crew abandon a ship in perfect condition? In the quarters, everything appeared normal. The sailors' personal belongings were in place, as if they had left in haste but intended to return. One of the strangest discoveries was the dining table. Plates with remnants of food, as if a meal had been abruptly interrupted. And the most unsettling find, a logbook was discovered. The entries were complete up to the day before the abandonment. There was no mention of any technical problem, storm, or conflict aboard. It was as if the crew had simply vanished overnight without warning. This discovery only fueled the theories and rumors surrounding the Ghost White. After all, what could lead an entire crew to abandon a ship in perfect condition? And what happened to them after being abandoned in the Caribbean? The mystery the W.L. White began its lonely journey. Guided only by ocean currents and the wind, the ship was last seen in the Caribbean before vanishing for weeks. When it reappeared, it was thousands of miles north, in the middle of the Atlantic. This improbable trajectory was made possible by a fascinating natural phenomenon, the North Atlantic Currents. These currents act like invisible highways across the ocean, carrying adrift vessels over vast distances. The W.L. White, without an engine or active sails, was carried by this unstoppable force, moving slowly but never ceasing. However, this journey was far from smooth. Strong winds and storms should have damaged the ship. Yet, when it was sighted, again, it was almost intact, as if protected by an unseen force. This only deepened the fascination and fear among sailors who crossed its path. What truly cemented the W.L. White's infamy was the sheer number of times it was sighted during its drift. Over 38 documented sightings between 1888 and 1889 made it the most observed ghost ship of the 19th century. Imagine being a sailor in that era, navigating under the stars when suddenly an immense shadow appears on the horizon, a ship with no flag, no crew, silently gliding over the waves. Many accounts described the W.L. White as a corpse at sea. Imposing, yet terrifying. Reports from sailors were almost always tinged with a mix of fear and fascination. Some attempted to approach to investigate, but many turned back, fearing the ship was cursed. During a time when the supernatural was deeply ingrained in maritime lore, tales of curses and ghosts spread quickly. A few brave souls managed to get close. Their descriptions echoed earlier findings. The ship was in perfect condition but completely deserted. These consistent observations only reinforced the mystery. As word spread, sailors began avoiding the W.L. White's known routes, believing that sighting the ship brought bad luck. And while it drifted across the Atlantic, the world became increasingly captivated by the Ghost White, a ship that seemed both defiant and hauntingly lonely. After months of endless drifting, the W.L. White met its final fate in April 1889. when it was spotted for the last time near the coast of Scotland. The sea was turbulent that day, with fierce winds and towering waves driving the ship toward the jagged rocks of a notorious area called Bass Rock, known as a death trap for vessels. Local residents, accustomed to watching ships pass through the area, noticed something unusual. The W.L. White followed its course, but in an uncontrolled manner, seemingly at the mercy of the elements. "It was as if the ship was a ghost," recounted a fisherman from the village. With no one to steer or adjust its sails, the ship violently collided with the rocks. The force of the impact tore a hole in the hull, and within hours the W.L. White began to sink. Some of its cargo was found, floating, but the ship itself was swallowed by the dark waters, disappearing forever into the depths. The wreck of the W.L. White caused no significant damage to the coast or local communities, but its impact ran deep in the collective imagination. Fishermen and sailors in the region quickly began telling tales of the ghost ship that finally rested. For weeks, pieces of wood and items from the W.L. White continued to wash ashore on nearby beaches. Some locals collected these items as keepsakes, while others avoided them, fearing they might be cursed. News of the shipwreck spread quickly through maritime communities. Local newspapers highlighted the tragic end of a ship that had already become legendary. "The ghost White finally rests, but the mystery persists," read one headline at the time. The cultural impact was immediate. Scotland, already steeped in legends and myths, added the W.L. White to its collection of mysterious sea tales. Even after its wreck, many believed the ship's presence lingered, with reports of its silhouette being spotted during storms. The W.L. White, or Ghost White, quickly became an icon among ghost ships. Sailors of the time turned its story into a living legend, with each retelling adding new mysterious details. Some claimed the ship was still sighted even after its wreck, navigating the waters near Scotland like an ethereal shadow. Stories began circulating in coastal communities, suggesting that spotting the Ghost White was an omen of bad luck. Fishermen reported seeing its silhouette during storms, and sailors avoided the route where it had sunk, fearing what they called the curse of the White Ship. Others compared the W.L. White to the Flying Dutchman, an older but equally terrifying legend. These connections reinforce the belief that the ocean harbored more than just vessels. It held stories that were never meant to be told. The fame of the Ghost White extended beyond the maritime world, finding its way into the pages of books and chronicles of the time. Nautical magazines documented its journey, while poets and writers drew inspiration from its tale to explore the mysteries of the sea. Some suggest that the W.L. White may have influenced later works about drifting ships, such as the well-known legend of the Mary Celeste. Although the events of the Mary Celeste predated those of the W.L. White, the Ghost White offered a darker and more tangible vision of a ghost ship. Additionally, traditional maritime songs mentioned the White Ship as a harbinger of doom. These accounts became part of nautical folklore, perpetuating the idea that the ocean is as mysterious as it is dangerous. Today, the Ghost White remains a reference point in documentaries and programs about maritime mysteries. Experts and historians analyze the 38 documented sightings, and the case is often cited in discussions about the thin line between fact and legend. Podcasts, digital articles, and videos on unexplained phenomena use the Ghost White as an example of how the ocean can craft stories that defy logic. Even more than a century after its disappearance, the W.L. White is remembered as one of the most emblematic cases in maritime history. The W.L. White case highlighted the need for clearer regulations on ship abandonment. At the time, there were no defined protocols, and adrift vessels posed risks to other ships and the environment. Today, technological advancements such as GPS, modern radars, and satellite tracking systems help prevent cases like the Ghost White from recurring. But in those days, everything depended on human skill, and, as the case showed, the sea does not forgive failures or unforeseen events. The W.L. White serves as a reminder of the limitations sailors faced in the 19th century. Without radio communication or tracking devices, crews were entirely at the mercy of the ocean. Even in an era of advanced technology, the mystery of the ghost White remains a warning about the power of the sea and its ability to swallow entire stories. Perhaps this is precisely what continues to captivate people today. Why do stories like the Ghost White continue to fascinate us? Perhaps because they remind us that the ocean is a place where human control vanishes, and the unknown takes over. The sea holds secrets that will never be fully revealed, challenging us to imagine what lies beyond our understanding. These cases also reveal something deeper: human vulnerability in the face of nature. Ghost ships like the W.L. White symbolize our efforts to master the sea, while abandonment and drifting are reminders that the ocean, in the end, always has the final word. Personally, I believe the Ghost White is more than just the story of a lost ship. It is proof that the unknown still holds power over us, and perhaps always will. And what about you? What do you think of this fascinating story? Do you believe the sea still holds secrets like the Ghost White? Leave your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories like this. And there's a special video here on the screen. Click now to watch and be even more amazed.